Make America Great Again. Who was it great for? Was it the 50s? Oh, there were problems in the 50s. Black people being lynched. Segregation big time. So was that the great America that black people can relate to? Is it during the 40s? Couldn't be during the 40s because, well, we had World War II from 40 to 45. Okay, so, and again, for black people, sitting in the back of the bus, segregation, everything, Jim Crow laws, all that stuff. Well, was it the 30s? It was still the same for us. I mean, white people may have been having a great time during that time. The Roaring 20s. Oh, yes, the Roaring 20s. Still the same for us. Make America Great Again. Come on. Tell me. Tell me. Okay, welcome to Fantline. Got another good one for you. And this episode is 4 years of Trump and 10 things that were exposed in those 4 years. Now, the first up is not so much something that was exposed, but pretty much my thoughts on Trump in that initial year, so to speak, or even before he got elected. And my thoughts of him were, okay, he's different. He's coming from another angle that we haven't seen before. He is not the norm, so to speak. And over these last 4 years, definitely not the norm. Didn't act like a politician, didn't talk like a politician. And I remember at that time in 2016, that was the thing people wanted to see. They didn't want to see the normal politician. They were tired of politician speak, politician talk. And I was going along just wanting to see how this would pan out, okay? And one of the first things that caught my eye was when he spoke about immigration. And I'm thinking, okay, I understand. I can be on board with that. Because the way I was looking at it was, we have so many people who are illegal, not paying taxes, and I try to get this word out so much. They're not paying taxes, that when you do find someone who is illegal, do a simple thing. Just go ahead and put a social security number on them and take it from there. But, you know, his thing was, talking about Trump, his thing was, he turned it into a racial thing, put it that way. And over time, I started to not change my viewpoint of, you know, of what immigration should be. But I started to see the other side of it, whereas families were separated, families were destroyed, and continue to be. And the system itself has racial overtones to it also. You know, you make people of color jump through hoops in order to be legalized, but it's a little bit easier for whites. And now if I want to put it back to the title, yeah, that's something that was exposed, at least in my eyes, you know, because I was looking at it from a narrow lens. And also, I just could not get on board with the way he spoke. For me, I like my presidents to have some decorum. I like my presidents to have a mastery of the English language. Or at least somewhat come close to it, okay? And not even use the word mastery. Just have be well-rounded, put it that way. Okay, be well-rounded. And I never saw that from him. I remember also that people were saying, well, just wait for him to, after he's in office, he'll start to sound presidential. He'll start to act presidential. Still waiting. Still waiting. It's what, 4 years now? Still waiting. But those were my first thoughts of Trump. I wanted to give him a chance. I really did. Truly, I wanted to give him a chance. There were situations where a lot of people were saying, well, he's this, he's that, he's racist. Now, technically, as far as when it came to black people, I never heard, it never seemed that he targeted black people, so to speak, to me, okay? Until I had to do a little digging, okay? When I heard about him being a landlord in New York, or also his father, and how there was racial discrimination in that. Okay, then I started to, get some info right there. But I was always looking for that certain concrete thing to pin on him, so to speak. And then I started to realize with him, it wasn't about what he said. It was always about what he didn't say. It was always about what he didn't do. See, that was the thing right there. That was the thing. It wasn't about what he said, because he's always careful not to say certain things. But it was always about what he didn't say. Especially when it came to police injustice toward black people. He never spoke up. Never spoke up. He always deflected. He always deflected in situation of, of the aftermath, the violence, the looting, so to speak, the rioting after that. He always deflected to that. And whenever you challenge someone about racism, notice that's always, if they really don't want to get into that, that's always the go-to point. They'll deflect to that. Okay, here's number 2. What the Bible says about a king. As for motive, Israel wanted a king in order to be like all the nations. Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. 1 Samuel 8:5. In contrast, the USA wanted something different, or someone who sounded like them. Not those across the board, but those who felt a right at the head of the table via birth, so to speak. God was reluctant to give Israel a king
when they demanded one, because they were looking for an earthly and not a heavenly king, and because they did not want to wait for God's time. Just the same, we as a nation have been spiraling downward in morality, pushing God further away. But yet, as a collective people who desired a man of little moral concepts, God gave the people what they wanted.
3. Now, Trump has been in the consciousness of America since the 90s. And I recall seeing him in various magazine publications, him hobnobbing with the likes of the Clintons, Jay-Z. You name the celebrity, he was on a publication with them. You name the celebrity, he was linked up. People Magazine, Us, whatever it may have been. News stations, it was all about Trump, 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 Trump. Even in rap videos, there were almost, if I can recall, like at least 100 rap videos or songs that mentioned Trump. Near 100. I think it was like 96. So somewhere between 96 and 100 rap songs or videos that have some mention of Donald Trump. And this is in the 90s. 90s into the early to mid 2000s. So he had an ingrainment in America. And there was also a saying about him. You refer to him as the Donald. Okay? The Donald. And when you mention Trump, I'll put it this way. The way people bring up the name Gates, Bill Gates, they think of money, success, power. That's how it was with Trump back in the 90s. Money, wealth, power. People of his ilk, of his celebrity, wanted to be linked up with him. That's how it is with anyone. The rich and famous want to dine with the rich and famous. The rich and famous want to party with the rich and famous. And that's how it was with Trump. But, when it came to politics, he got exposed. When it came to talking about his beliefs, it became a different thing. But even with his beliefs, he flip-flopped on that, because back in the 90s, he wanted to run as a Democrat. I guess because he was hobnobbing with a lot of celebrities are mainly liberals. So I guess he was just going with the wind on that. But see, that's the thing with him. There was no basis, no ground level with him. It's all about doing and saying what I need to do and say to get to the top. I'll tell you what you want to hear and still be myself. And basically that's how it's been with him. He continues to be himself. Kudos to him. But for those of us who saw through the mud, through the cracks, kudos to us. But once he came to power, like I said, it's the things that he didn't say or hadn't said that makes you go, Again, when it came to either you stand up for black people and the things they're going through, or Mexicans and the things they're going through, either you say something or do something that can make all the difference in the world. But when he chooses not to, that tells what side of the dinner table he's on. And when neo-Nazi groups came to his defense or wanted to back him, he had to be pushed and nudged and urged to downplay them. You can tell he didn't want to. He didn't want to. And when he didn't want to do that, that really exposed himself. But for some reason, his constituents, those who voted for him, those who are in his corner, never said anything about that. They never questioned him on those political issues, those social issues. They never questioned him. So you know what? Then he becomes even more empowered to do so, because he's never questioned by his constituents on things like that. Never. Never. Myself, it doesn't matter who I vote for. If I see you not doing what you should do, not doing what you promised to do, or not doing what you expected to do, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. Because even when it came to Obama, I criticized him for not speaking up for black people enough. When he was in office, I feel he did not say enough for black people. It was like he was conflicted. And there was plenty that I said. But the thing is, those who voted for Trump, I don't see you criticizing him. I don't see that at all. And that's very disappointing. Because many of those that I know who voted for Trump never came to the defense of situations like that where Trump was called out and I didn't see anything from you. I didn't see anything about the neo-Nazis who wanted to rally behind Trump, and Trump being very, very, very reluctant to downplay them. Like I said, he had to be pushed out the door and urged to say something so that the public who didn't vote for him won't call him out. But he took too long. It was too late anyway. See, some things like that, you should automatically come right out and say something. But he didn't. He had to be pushed. He had to be cajoled. No. Number 4 is Trump's attitude. Again, his attitude got exposed because if you think of Trump during the 90s, there was never any situation of him needing to have an attitude to show to the public. It was always about parties and being on talk shows and things like that. So everything was controlled in that manner. But once he became president, even before he became president, he showed that attitude, whereas he's very petty. He's a very petty individual. He will, if you say the slightest thing to him, he will come back at you 10 times 10 times stronger. And to me, that, again, that's not the type of attitude that I want to see from a president, the leader of a nation, the most powerful nation on earth. Did not want to see that type of attitude. I mean, here's a guy who would much rather be on Twitter taking shots at people who said something about him. And even to that degree, heck, within the past week or so, he's fired a couple of people, and when he fired them, he put it on Twitter. He didn't confront them, he put it on Twitter. So they were fired on Twitter. But like I said, his attitude didn't show fruition until he started to run for office, and when he was in office, and even now. But like I said, the thing is that those who voted for him, and I'm talking to you again, still do not want to put him to task. They're willing to turn a blind eye, no matter what he does, what he says. They're willing to gloss it over and say he's the best president ever. And I find that laughable. How in the world can you say he's the best president ever? Look, even in the Republican realm, in the conservative realm, I consider Ronald Reagan the best. You forgot about Ronald Reagan? But you got people my age saying, "Oh, he's the best ever." Again, that's laughable. Okay, you have that thought, you keep that thought. But to me, something is delusional about you also. If you're going to say those things. And why is that? Because he was on a mantra of make America great again. Who was it great for? Who has it ever been great for? Tell me. You know, people want to get nostalgic, but when you go back into that nostalgia, and I think mainly they want to talk about maybe what was it, the 50s? Oh, there were problems in the 50s. Black people being lynched, segregation big time. So was that the great America that black people can relate to? I mean, tell me, what great America is being talked about here? Is it during the 40s? Couldn't be during the 40s because, well, we had World War II from 40 to 45. Okay, so, and again, for black people, sitting in the back of the bus, segregation, everything, Jim Crow laws, all that stuff going on. So, was it the 30s? It was still the same for us. I mean, white people may have been having a great time during that time. The Roaring 20s. Oh, yes, the Roaring 20s. Still the same for us. So, I really, tell me, what make America great again? Come on. Tell me. Because America is supposed to be about a melting pot of everyone. Not just white people, but everyone. So tell me the period in America that was great for everyone. Tell me. Because it seems like a lot of you are stuck on the needle of me only. My particular race only. Tell me. Okay. Number 5. Now, number 5 is about conservative Christians who supported Trump. Conservative Christians like Graham, Paula White, to say the least. Okay. Now, with all this going on about Trump, I liken them to the same people that I personally know who, even though you're supposed to be Christian, and I followed the two of them also, okay? Love the messages they've spoken about, but they lost me on this one. And I understand about praying for your leaders. The Bible talks about that, praying for your leaders. But I'm not talking about just praying. I'm talking about you backing that person no matter what. There's a difference there. You backing that person no matter what. Again, I don't see I don't see how you can do this. And I used to think this way when it came to conservatism, because there's a laundry list of things that conservative speak, so to speak, talks about. You can talk about immigration. You can talk about abortion. See, that's always a hot button issue, and it's like a green light for conservatives. Okay, I understand that. And the church. I'm talking about conservatism in the church in this regard. Gay rights. That's another topic. And there are several others, okay? But what I want to get to is nowhere. And for a little while, this had gone over my head, because I had treated this thing as everyone being equal. I put it this way, everyone being treated equal. And we're not all treated equal. We are equal under the laws of God, under the eyes of God. But pertaining to man, we are not all treated equal. And under the guise of church, so to speak, you want to talk that way, walk that way, act that way. But in reality, it's not reality. It's not. It's not reality. You know, I challenged a friend of mine. Hope he's still a friend. I challenged him. Now, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm going to segue this into number 6 also, which is the priorities of church and racism are at the bottom. Church and racism are at the bottom, the priorities. And what I'm saying is, you know, that list that when it comes to church, especially a conservative church, talk about abortion and immigration and police matters, so to speak, and America itself. But where's racism on that list? And like I said, I challenged my friend on that, and I asked him, because he was more into socialism, America being a socialist nation. So I challenged him. I said, well, where does racism come? Where does racism come on into that? Because when it comes to the conservative church, heck, and even the other churches, it's not a priority. It's not a priority. You never see it on that list of things to do, so to speak, that laundry list. You don't see racism in that. Why is that? And my friend, he didn't get back with me on that. It's been like 2 weeks ago. So, he didn't want to answer that. And like I said before, we bring up things about blacks not being treated fairly, and Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. And every time it's always the aftermath, where it was the riots and things like that. But did you know, or do you know that in any situation, and I'm not trying to make excuses or anything like that, I'm just talking about human nature as is, and to not make it look like, because and I sometimes I have to hold back, on myself on this, and think it's just black people doing this, but in any situation, in any country, throughout history, with protest came situations of rioting and looting. Now, it's wrong, but it happens. It happens. Because you mix in elements who are really not about it with the frenzy that's going on. Heck, that's how America got started, from protest. But for some reason, it seems like a sin to my white friends that, oh, you can't say anything bad about America. Or how dare you? How dare you say anything bad about America? Even though I've worked in law enforcement, I've been in the military, so I've got every right to talk about the ills of America. And I've always said that and I've been all over the world, so there is no country better than America. But America is not perfect either. By no stretch of the imagination is it perfect. It needs to work on a lot of things. And there is no harm in calling it out and bringing to the forefront of these ills that plague America. Number 7. Blacks who supported Trump were delusional. They were delusional to think that we will be treated equally. See, that's the fight and struggle that's going on now. That is the struggle that's going on now. And the biggest siren blowing for that is police injustice. We got people like Candace Owens, and I don't want to make a name for her, but I just want to mention her in the sense that she is the prototypical delusional black person who thinks that everything is peaches and cream, that racism doesn't exist, and she has to follow everything that is white. I just said it right there. And she's delusional. And, the thing for me is, now I don't want to wish bad on anybody, but it would really, really put her in her place if she were stopped and harassed by the police, and they say didn't know her, didn't recognize her, or anything like that. I wonder how she would feel then. I just wonder. But as far as other black people, come out of that delusion. Come out of that fairy tale that you're in right now. Because as long as you're black right now, because there's still a lot of work to be done, don't get stuck up in the situation where you think you're equal right now, because you're not being looked upon as equal. Like I said, the interactions with the police still show it. It still shows it. Matter of fact, there was a young black man, a Trump supporter. He was killed by the police. I mean, he was a big Trump supporter. I forgot his name. And he was looking to break up a fight. Police come on the scene. He goes to introduce himself, okay, as if they were going to, as if they knew him. But this is how delusional he was. He goes to introduce himself and say that he was breaking up the fight. And when he moves, the police shoot him. Kills him. Big Trump supporter, okay? Did Trump ever say anything about this guy? No, he didn't. He didn't. That's why I say you can't be delusional right now. Can't. Number 8. I had white friends who refused to listen and realize that there is systemic racism. I had showed them statistics. I had showed them videos. And yet instead of, and know me personally, okay? And yet, instead of wanting to listen to me, they'd rather pull up a video of Candace Owens, and there was another guy talked just like her. I forget his name, but they'd rather go to that and show me footage of them saying that there is no systemic racism, that there is no injustice toward black people in America. They'd rather do that. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. So you really want to go there? Wow. But you know, that showed me that you continue to want to be in this, again, fairy tale that you're in, so to speak. And now I'm talking to white people because you're in a bubble, and you're in a protective bubble. And as long as you're in that bubble and you're not affected or pulled over by cops who harass you and mishandle you or treat you as a thing or an object, you know what? I can see that you don't want to come out of that bubble. That you'd rather listen to people like Candace Owens and say that the world is not that bad. But that's a shame. That's a shame. So I guess you knowing me personally just doesn't count. You'd rather go to someone who you don't know, and you'd rather listen to them. Okay. But, and the shame is, and the sorry is that there are many people like that. Many people. And this is the muck and mire that we have to deal with and dig our way through. And this is why I put on the videos that I show every week. Because we can't let down. We need to be reminded. We need to be educated. We need to learn. Because not enough people are taking this seriously. And those who do take it seriously, they're going in another direction with it. And number 9, blacks who say Christianity is not theirs, they have to realize that there have been lies about Christianity. And those lies have to be continuously called out. In contrast, not all Republicans or conservatives are racist, but elements have to be continually called out. You can have, say, a man like, say, George Bush, conservative Republican, and I don't think of him as racist. But then you have elements who call themselves conservative and Republican, be it David Duke, Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now, does that bring down the whole group? Now, I put it this way, at that same time, this same man, now this same individual who calls himself a Republican and a conservative, also calls himself a Christian. He calls himself a Christian. Now, do you throw away, or do you because of him and others like him who also call themselves Christian, okay, do you say that Christianity is racist? You see what I'm getting? You see where I'm going with this? You have to call out the bad elements of a particular belief or whatever. You have to call them out. You have to call them out. You have to call them out. And finally, number 10. And this really sticks at me because Trump, throughout this year, has downplayed the coronavirus. And it's affected all of America, really. Those who voted for him take their cue from him. He hardly goes around with a mask on. So those same people who voted for him, they walk around with no mask. He has a task force, but really doesn't do anything with it. And like I said, that's a shame. But my thing is, things would be a lot different and a lot better if he had stepped up and made things across the board, nationwide, concerning the virus.
In conclusion, remember what I said about God giving the people what they wanted. Also remember that God is about the big picture. He puts leaders in place for the outcome to lead up to the second coming of Jesus. But before that happens, one notable event must take place. And it's the placement of the Antichrist. And no, it's definitely not Trump. Because the Antichrist will be a unifier, a problem solver, who will have worldwide acclaim, and he will deceive God's very elect. And judging from the past 4 years, it won't be hard at all when the Antichrist comes on the scene. Overall, these past 4 years has exposed America at its raw core. We were willing to accept the absurd over righteousness and hate and bigotry over love, and prioritized America not succumbing to socialism over America's continued acceptance of police injustice and systemic racism. Lastly, we can do and say things that appear righteous in a way, patting ourselves on the back, but does it coincide with God? For example, a friend said he voted for Trump because he didn't want America to be a socialist nation. I said, okay, but where is racism on your list of priorities? Because Trump pushes that subject to the trash bin. But think of it this way. Where would socialism and racism rank with God? Would he be more opposed to the USA turning socialist than America solving its racial issues? I said, think about it, but he never replied back to me. We must put Jesus first and be ever mindful our true fight is against Satan, for it's a spiritual battle, a battle we've already won by the word of God. Fantline.com is where you need to be if you're about growth and evolving as a person. And Fantline.com is about truth. Oh no, not my truth, God's truth. And if you're not about God's truth, then this isn't the website for you. If you're into gossip, then this isn't the website for you. And if you're not into learning and growing as a person, then again, this isn't the website for you. So come on, have some knowledge dropped on you. Or are you scared of what you may find out? So go to Fantline.com, or if you're into a listening mode, go to my podcast at anchor.fm/Marvin-Fant for Fantline 100. Either way, you'll learn something, and every so often I'll give away cash prizes, but you'll have to check out Fantline.com. Enough said.